Have you ever wondered what happens when a UK citizen races in Japan? Kanata Rivington, a half-Japanese, half-British 19-year-old hailing all the way from the United Kingdom, arrives in Japan with one goal in mind: to search for his lost father. He participates in the 4th year of MFG competitions, and I ain't playing with you when I say my heart races when I see this boy drive. Due to environmental concerns and the increasing scarcity of fossil fuels, high-powered sports cars have become an endangered species. But that doesn't stop people from still enjoying racing. A new motorsport series has risen in Japan, and its popularity is above the moon. It is known as MFG. The anime starts with our protagonist, Kanata, arriving in Japan from the UK. There's a race event going on, and people in the airport stop to watch the screens. He doesn't seem too interested in it, but tells us his friends in England were all obsessed with MFG as well. He's trying to locate the place he'll be living, but has difficulty reading the map since this is his first time in Japan. We see a girl who appears to be in high school talking on the phone with her friend while walking home. Apparently, Kanata will be staying at their place, and her friend was so interested in him, asking all sorts of questions. The friend, whose name is Wakana, tells her to introduce her to him if he turns out to be hot. Ugh. Girls, am I right? She hangs up and continues her walk home. She has a flashback that immediately sheds some more light on who she is. She's one of the MFG Angels, and she flashes back to being asked out by a racer named Aiba. She politely declines, by the way. He asks for her name, and she tells him MFG7. She actually wasn't interested even a little bit. She finally gets home and walks into the living room. She sees Kanata and freezes like a female popsicle. She's mesmerized by his face, and I ain't gonna lie, the boy is beautiful. Her father introduces her as Ren, and when Kanata shakes her hand, she makes up some excuse about having math homework and dashes to her room. Ren's dad tells Kanata he's impressed by his fluent Japanese, and Kanata tells him he learned it from his mum when he was younger. The next day, Ren meets up with Wakana on their way to school, and Wakana doesn't even let our girl breathe. She asks her about their foreign visitor, and even asks if she was able to take a photo of him. Ren gets tired of her bickering and tells her he's going to be around for a while, so she can just come visit him when she wants. This excites Wakana. Kanata finds his way to an automotive shop and meets a fellow named Ogata. Ogata greets Kanata in English, but is happy when he responds back in Japanese. They make their introductions, and Ogata mentions he heard Kanata went to a famous driving school. Now, there's something I didn't mention earlier. MFG has this weird rule about standardized grip-to-weight ratio, and because of this rule, the best cars to use are European models with lots of horsepower and good balance without any need for modding. Cars like the Benz, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Porsche, and you know the rest. This makes people complain about the rule and nickname it the rich man's rule. Ogata explains this and apologizes to Kanata for not having a competitive vehicle for him to race with. He shows Kanata a red Toyota vehicle, and Kanata tells him he doesn't mind. He actually loves the car. Ogata tells him he's already taken care of his entry and registration. Kanata leaves the automotive shop, and on his way, he comes across Ren, who is equally surprised to see him. Ren asks where he's coming from, and he tells her. They swap contact info, and Kanata asks Ren about her work. She tells him it's a bit irregular. She doesn't tell him she works as one of the MFG Angels, though. Ren proceeds to make a request. She asks Kanata if she can take a picture with him for Wakana, and he agrees. The picture actually looks cooler than she and I expected. Ren then asks Kanata why he actually came to Japan. He pauses for a bit, but then tells her that he's looking for his missing father. Ren gets to school the next day, and she's ambushed by Wakana, who acts like a sulking child while asking for Kanata's picture. She shows it to her, and guess what? Wakana screams. She snatches Ren's phone and shows the picture to their classmates. She then remembers the previous day when Kanata showed her the only picture he had of his dad. It was a picture of his mom and dad, and he tells Ren he'd like to visit that location. She tells him she'll help him find the location. Kanata is grateful and thanks her. We see the racer who was disturbing Ren the other day. His name is Aiba. Apparently, the Dude is deep in love with Ren, so he begs one of the officials to give him the identity of MFG7, and the official refuses, saying such information is confidential. That's when Kanata comes to register his name as one of the racers. He registers his surname as Katagiri and not Rivington. When he leaves the place, Aiba calls out to him and introduces himself with pride. Aiba is actually a pretty good racer who came in 9th position in the last run. Kanata is excited to meet him and shows it genuinely. Aiba then takes Kanata out for a treat of beef bowls. Kanata later meets up with Ren as they search for the place in the picture of his parents. They don't find it though. The day of Kanata's run comes pretty quickly, and soon it's his turn. Aiba gives him a few pointers, and Kanata tells him he's already memorized the entire map. Aiba takes him to be unserious, and after some more advice, Kanata heads over to the starting line. Ren sees him and is shocked. She didn't expect Kanata to be a racer. It's time for him to move, and off he goes. A drone is right behind, streaming his run to the whole world. Many people all over the world are watching. Ren's mother and father are also watching, and Ren's mom mentions that it's possible he didn't use his normal surname because he wants to send a message to his dad. Ogata and Aiba communicate with him as he drives, giving him various pointers on the way. Aiba voices out that he's surprised Ogata was able to use the number 86, and Ogata says he's surprised as well that he just put it in, and luckily no one was using the number. Aiba then begins to voice to Ogata how Kanata's vehicle is at a disadvantage because it uses an H-shaped gear. While they were discussing, he notices that Kanata has climbed up to the 54th position. Impossible. Aiba tells Ogata that there's no way that Toyota vehicle could have climbed so high. While they were yet talking, Kanata climbs to the 53rd position. The central computer puts an attention flag on Kanata, and that's when the whole world knows that this 19-year-old didn't come here to play. Maybe you don't understand the magnitude of such a feat. The only other person to ever do this in his debut even is Michael Beckenbauer, who just happens to be the number one in the world of MFG. Yeah, it's a sick feat. We see a flashback where Ogata is telling Kanata about the grip-to-weight ratio and how it affects even the top teams. Kanata wonders who came up with that kind of a rule, and Ogata tells him it's an anonymous man named Ryo Takahashi. Kanata thinks this man must be a genius. Back to the race. Kanata dashes past Sector 1 and climbs up the ranks even more, entering the 52nd position. Ogata tells him from here it's going downhill, so he needs to adjust the brakes. He does so, and tells Ogata he's getting the hang of the vehicle even better, and says he's going to pick up the pace. Now, here's what happened after he said that. Aiba and Ogata's heads exploded. This means Kanata has been playing around since. He reaches the 48th position, making the world shudder as to who this 19-year-old is. Kanata makes a fantastic turn and commends Ogata in his mind for the brilliant work he did on the car. He's actually enjoying this vehicle. Kanata is approaching a danger zone. He tells Ogata he wants to pick up the pace even more. This makes Aiba pick up the radio and shout at Kanata that what he's about to do might be dangerous. Kanata still dives head in and tells Aiba the map is playing like a video in his head. Kanata makes another incredible turn and lands himself in the 44th position. The way he drifts is unimaginable. It's at this point a man in an office makes a remark about Tanaka, saying it's expected of the student of a legendary downhill racer. He rides further and even lands the 42nd position. It was at this point that Aiba realized that they were better off motivating him than feinting him to apply brakes. Aiba gives Ogata an idea. Ogata immediately says he doesn't think it's a really good idea, but Aiba insists, saying he knows more about a racer's psychology. Ogata communicates to Tanaka and tells him that there are 26 cars ahead of him. This drives our driver bonkers and gives him the surge of confidence he needs, and he zooms again. The rate at which Tanaka has been climbing the leaderboard since entering Sector 3 is very alarming. He's already climbed up to position 41, and now he's approaching Odawara Pikes Peak infamous death zone. Ever since Mount Fuji's north side erupted a few years ago, depending on the wind, this area can become choked with volcanic gases, and it causes the area to become very foggy. You might even say they're clouds of death that wander the ghost town. And Tanaka drives straight into the fog, and guess what? The fog seems to be even thicker today than usual. Meanwhile, we see Ren throwing a mental fit about how angry she is at Tanaka for not mentioning anything about MFG. She shows she cares when she becomes a little worried that Tanaka is in a death zone. And let's be honest, with that kind of low visibility, death is preparing its house for a new visitor. Tanaka is relentless. He doesn't even flinch. He drives as if he's on a clear road, seeing it clearly. It's an extremely scary sight. Everyone watching has their hearts in their mouths because no one drives this recklessly. Even professional drivers take a chill pill when driving down this road. While he laughs at death in the face of low visibility, he climbs the rank and reaches the 30th position. Now, this is another feat, another insane feat. Being in the top 30 in MFG means you bag some points. Bagging some points means you get free tires. They set you up with a booth without you asking for it. And even sweeter is the fact that your car number becomes highlighted in gold. Ogata makes a remark that this is enough for him. He'd never ask to make it into the godly 15. Tanaka makes another crazy turn, and even the drone shows that on a scale of 110, visibility is 20. So how on earth is Tanaka doing this? Tanaka drives, he twists, he turns, and now he's moved up even more to number 24. Tanaka finally makes it out of the fog, and now everywhere is as bright as day again. Ogata makes matters worse when he tells Kanata that there are 9 racers ahead of him. The whole world is watching, and the whole world is thinking the same thing. They all want to see Kanata in the actual race. Kanata is plunging through and through. We're then given a glimpse of the record holder, Michael Beckenbauer, who believed Kanata isn't a threat because his car, the 86, is low on power. He mentions that the course levels out soon, and there's a long straight just before the finish line. All the time Kanata has probably gained from his insane twists and turns will be lost there. Kanata keeps driving like a madman, making these turns that make the devil stand up from his seat. He's on a roll, making Ogata question if he has a split personality since he's being a totally different person on the wheels. Aiba tells Ogata that Kanata is not as aggressive as he thinks since he has perfect control of the vehicle and is zooming on ahead. There goes one vehicle left to get into the Godly 15. The Godly 15, as you might have guessed already, are the racers allowed to overtake in the race for the MFG Championship. Ogata tells Kanata one car left. Kanata speeds up even more, skyrocketing to number 15 and then number 14. But the dire time is nigh. Kanata is approaching the end of the race, and the very long straight is showing up now. Kanata is going to have to fight a serious battle to keep that number 15 because of the lack of power of the 86. It's full throttle from here on. Kanata drives with all the speed the Toyota can muster. The air is resisting, the car is resisting. Only Kanata is pushing forward. The drones following them all max out at 180 kph. So Kanata pulls away from the drone because of the speed he's driving at. Sadly, the imaginary records of those insanely fast cars start catching up to him. He loses a place, falling back to number 15, but he keeps on driving. Ogata is heartbroken because even after all the daredevil driving Kanata has done, he might not make the Godly 15 because his car isn't good enough. The 86, battling against the wind, drives at a max speed of 230 kph, while other vehicles in the top 100 can drive with speeds up to 300 kph. The difference in power is extreme. Kanata still pushes on. He approaches a 90-degree sharp turn, but he doesn't slow down. He attacks it straight and does a super drift. The time difference between him and the 16th position is very little. Kanata tries his best as the finish line is in sight, but ultimately he ends up in the 16th position. Everywhere is silent, everyone is silent. This is heartbreaking for Ogata. Aiba and Ogata go to welcome back Kanata, and much to Ogata's sadness, Kanata thanks him so much, saying the car lived up to his expectations right to the very end. Ogata begins to cry and asks Kanata for a hug, which he speedily declines because of Ogata's running nose. Now something crazy happens. Ren walks up to Kanata and gives him a dirty slap. Not just a slap, a very dirty slap. Kanata can't recognize her because of all the disguise, and she runs away. Everyone, especially Kanata, is confused. Aiba decides to treat Kanata to dinner to celebrate their loss. And during the dinner, Aina gets a notification that the number 15 had been disqualified due to using unauthorized tires, and this means Kanata is the new number 15. Kirgato Kanata is going to participate in the main event. All the racers are introduced, and Kanata is among them. I sure can't wait to see how this race ends. Fellow weebs, if you enjoyed this anime recap, then you need to watch this next video right here, or even this playlist. But be ready for the ultimate weeb binge session if you do. See you in the next recap.